I'm here with one of the presidential candidates for FIDE, Jan Henrik Buettner. Hello, Jan.
Hi, Sagar. How are you doing in India?
I'm well. And you are in Cyprus right now.
Correct. Yes, we're in Cyprus.
Amazing. Jan, I got to know about you through the freestyle events.
Yes.
It was something that you began with somewhere back 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago in the world of chess. And now you're taking a step which will increase your involvement with the world of chess. How did you make this decision to run for the FIDE elections, presidential elections?
It's a very good question. I ask me the same question like every day. No, not really, but no. Actually, it came up with as I don't have to explain to you my involvement with the chess world and my endeavors with Magnus to establish a freestyle chess series. We call it Freestyle Chess, the Fischer Random 960. Upon his request, which was in October of 23. And since then, we have done 9 tournaments. I raised and invested like $27.5 million into this series. And so it has been hugely successful, as you know, and I'm very, very happy that you have been part of it from the beginning. A big asset. One of the reasons why I really fell in love with India is you and Amruta and Tanya, all this great Indian crew, but of course also the players like Gukesh, who made his first big appearance like in Weissenhaus in February of 24. Then of course now Arjun, who is very close to my heart in Prague. So I have really been very glad to have all the Indian participation. And that's also part of the reason why I'm staying and in the chess world, because as you know, my goal was from the beginning to establish the series. And as I just see I'm so wrinkly from all the work, but I'm already 62 years old in September. So that's, I think, quite okay to be wrinkly at that stage. But no, so the point is that I was really not looking for another job or, looking forward to becoming a CEO of a small startup at the age of 60. But I felt it necessary to jumpstart this because it was basically Magnus and my vision. And as you know, Magnus is not an executor of a company. He's mainly interested in playing chess and golf and spending time with his family. So I took on the obligation much longer than I wanted. I wanted to hand over to somebody else over the time. And it didn't really work until June of this year. June 30 is when I found somebody who was able to take it over. It's a great guy, experienced guy from the media world. He built up the pay TV channels in Germany and had like a lot of involvement in the gaming industry and so on. He's based in London. His name is Dr. Andreas Walker. We call him Johnny Walker because obviously, but so he's also a dear friend of mine. He just turned 60, so he's also very seasoned and experienced. He took over the freestyle together actually with Roman Vidoniak, who is Javokir's trainer, obviously, and so they took over the freestyle chess efforts as of July 1st, in the course of the tournaments that we have done, I have become very close with a lot of the top players. Of course, starting with my very dear friend Levon Aronian, who has been very part of our family as well, with his wife Annie. Actually, Holly produced her songs in our Big Barn Studios. I don't know whether you have seen already, but the first release has come out.
Yes, I saw it. Friends.
Everybody can find it on all channels like YouTube. We have a great music video. It's called Friends by Annie Aronian. And that's just the start. We have produced 7 fantastic songs, and we're going to release them bit by bit. I think she's going to be a huge star internationally. She has an incredible voice, an incredible presence, and we have presented her at the Biarritz Film Festival a month ago here in France. In Europe and France. And So that's, of course, they became very dear friends. They visit us at home in our South African home. Of course, they've been in Weissenhaus a lot. But also, of course, Fabi, whose birthday was yesterday, and Magnus, of course. So the big guys, obviously, but especially the young players, as I mentioned, like Arjun Erigaisi, who has been very loyal to us, and also Prague, of course. As I said, Gukesh, decided after his not so good performances, I would say, to rather focus on the traditional chess, and so, but especially also the two Uzbekian players, Nodirbek Abdustorov and Chavuk Sindarov, have been very close to my heart. Of course, Vincent, the German, and also our villain Hans Niemann. All of these young players. I can name many more. Like also like Rich Rapport. He's also a very, very dear friend. And of course, Maxime, I could name off all of them, but, I don't want to go on name dropping. But the thing, I want to specifically focus on two players, especially Vincent and Chavukir, because both players have been also publicly very thankful to their exposure to the freestyle, and their rise to the top, from like around position 30 or 30 to 35 to in the top 10, 5, 6. Vincent obviously was the first one. I also helped him on the side. I was sponsoring him with his trainings and his skills, that he could improve his skills with Peter Liko. So, as my fellow German citizen, I wanted to give a little boost to the German chess. That was the beginning. But then I met Javokir when we needed a replacement for a tournament, which was about 1.5 years ago. And he was playing for, I don't know which Bundesliga club he was playing for, but against our St. Pauli club, which where I had brought Magnus to play for St. Pauli, the soccer legendary club, which also the chess is in the first Bundesliga in Germany. So I saw Javokir. He was also in this place 30, 40 or whatever, and I thought this was an incredible character. He's so young but so energetic. And I said, Javokir, do you want to play with us with freestyle? And he was very glad, and he thrived, as you know. And he also publicly attributes his success partly to his exposure to freestyle and being able to play with the big guys and this very creative and very challenging format. Alongside of course, Javokir is also now, as he has been has won the candidates tournament, and he's now challenging Gukesh for the World Championship. Two things have happened there. First of all, Roman Vidoniak, of course, is now a very hot asset in the chess market. Everybody wants to be coached by him. He has a specific training method. He's also writing a book currently. He's very busy, so that he's not really focused right now on our new company. He's going to do that more after the World Championship. But of course, preparation for a World Championship is much challenging, and he's spending a lot of time on that with Javokir and the team that they have put together. And additionally, he's finishing up his book that he is publishing. Also going to be a great success, I'm sure, because a lot of people, he has this very specific teaching method that he wants to bring over. And along that, I was basically asked by Roman to take a little bit care of Javokir on the business side, because now he is also a very hot asset in the market, and many people try to take advantage of him. And at his young age and focus on chess, he can't be so focused on the business side. So I took over. It would be too much to say I'm his business manager, but I have a relationship and a contract with him, basically, which doesn't give me any benefits. I don't take any money from him. There's no obligation. We have a complete open agreement, which is, very flexible, can be canceled at any time. There's no obligation for him to do anything. And he just what he actually does is occasionally sends me a contract or what is put in front of his eyes, or some business contacts that want to do something with him. I said, send them my way. I can take my experience and negotiate that. on behalf of you so that you don't get screwed over, because that's the most valuable time in your life now in the following years, and you don't want to give away the exclusivity or whatever to anybody, and you don't want to do that. So I have been very close by that also, as you know, Bibi Sara, which was the first woman that we brought into the circles in Las Vegas, where we wanted to follow Judith Polgar's quest to basically have the women being able to challenge the men as she was able to do in her active years, and not having like separate women tournament like for eternity, but maybe having also young girls being inspired at the age of 5 or 6 to become a challenger of the big male players. So that was a test that we did in Las Vegas with Bibi Sara, and she didn't perform, that bad. She was obviously not challenging for the top, but she was not finishing last in the tournament, and so I think that was out of the 16 top players was very good. So also became close with Bibi Sara and her family, and Holly and I obviously because we do everything together. So especially it's a girls thing, That's but she obviously she and Javoki are spending a lot of time together, and they are also coached by Roman. So in that context, I have been, when I talked about the end of my chess exposure, so to speak, when I handed over the freestyle portion to somebody else and said, okay, now I can go back to my nice life between, Germany and South Africa and Italy and Cyprus and all the nice places that Holly and I go to and have. And then, so they said basically, please, Jan, don't leave the chess world. You were the best thing that ever happened to chess, and do such great things with freestyle, and consider doing this for the whole chess world. Please run for the FIDE presidency. And I was, first of all, I was laughing. I was saying, please, that was the last thing on my mind when I entered the chess world, to become like a politician or whatever. I've never been running for a political office or anything. I have always just started my own companies, have been my own man, and did not seek any votes of any people. But as I am like not the typical German, so to speak, the typical German is always, I call him yes, butter. So when you ask a German about something, he always says yes in the first place, and then there's a big but, which leads to we're not doing it at all. But I have been still doing my business career, majority of my business career in California in the US. And there I have been seeing that they are more, I call them why noters. So the American way is always, when question is put into why not? Okay, so I approached this FIDE presidency candidacy in the why not fashion. And there were not too many nots coming up. So I was like, okay, let's do it. And it's a 90-day project. Obviously my decision to go was like 6 weeks old. There's only 4 weeks now since we are able and allowed to do campaigning or marketing since June 26th. And so I approached this, first of all, as a project to, everything I start, I want to win. So everything is focused right now, these 90 days. We have like 60 more left, I think even less, like 56 or whatever, until election in Samarkand. Focused on winning. I can tell you in a minute how I'm doing this. Looks very good, but it's a special method and approach that I'm putting to it. And then, being able to, after that, being able to rebuild an organization from zero. And I take it zero because when I take over, I think a lot of things will change and to the better, hopefully. But then I'm able to shape an organization, which is something that I have done my whole business life in different areas, starting with mobile communications in the 80s, online services in the 90s, venture capital in the 2000s, real estate developing in the 2010s, and hotel operations like in the 2020s. Around that, it's always like 7-year periods, my little booklet. where I have like these 7-year periods where I do new things. And so I'm really excited, if elected, to be able to hands-on really shape the organization in a professional way. But also, if I don't win it, I won't cry in my sleep. As you know, my life is nice, and I'm also happy with continuing my life after this project is over. So, that's my little longer introduction why and how this decision came about.
Amazing. Yeah, very
I'm just trying
interesting.
to put a power to my laptop because I see that the battery is low. I don't want us to be cut off here in the middle of the.
Sure.
So I'm just
Please do.
taking my battery pack here. Okay, yeah. So
that's a very interesting story, and thank you for sharing it. How you managed to how you decided to run for FIDE presidentship. How did you become a team with Malcolm Payne, who is going to be the deputy FIDE president if you do win? So how did that happen?
Yeah, that's actually, as I said, like my initial, so to speak, campaign initiation team consisted, as I said, of the players, but also of Bibi Sarah's mom. And she's from Kazakhstan, and she's of course very active. And she suggested Malcolm Payne to connect with, whom I hadn't known so far. So Malcolm and I met in Frankfurt he was anyway at an event in Frankfurt, like a chess thing, because he is located in London, obviously, but he was in Frankfurt. And I was just coming back from Hong Kong, where we were participating, not playing, obviously, but we have been using the opportunity to meet with people in the area. I was in Macau, and I spent some time there to check how my potential candidacy would be received by the chess experts and community. There was this tournament. I don't know what the tournament was exactly, but it was a big tournament in Hong Kong.
Rapid and Blitz teams, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, that was it. And then we were just coming back from there. And on the way back, I met Malcolm at the Frankfurt airport. We sat together for maybe 2 or 3 hours. And we immediately got along so well. I mean, he's like such a fantastic person. He's like such a chess dedicated person his whole life. And he brings all of the expertise that I'm lacking in the chess market. And so I think we are a fantastic team because I bring the business side, the more presentation side, the marketing side, getting the sponsors in. That's basically, in short, our concept is basically very simple. We're going to make a real organization out of this FIDE, a working company that has revenues, that has shareholders. That all the 203 federations are the shareholders, and they are going to be treated as shareholders. That means that we're going to increase the revenue significantly. If you think that I was able to raise $27.5 million within 1 year for freestyle chess, you can imagine that I would be able to raise much more money for the general chess market, as with all of my contacts with the sponsors and interested parties who would like to invest in the chess if it's not so intransparent as it is right now, so to speak, where nobody really knows where the money is going and so on. So we're going to set up a complete new company structure that will be very transparent to everybody, especially to the shareholders. And then we're going to distribute 20% of the additional revenues directly to the federations so that they are able to conduct their duties and business, what they need and want to do with the development of chess and the grassroots and the distant learning and the education and the playing on the local level, without every 4 years having some candidate come by and say, "Oh, yeah, please get your vote, and I make all these promises, and here's some upfront money and blah blah blah." So I'm not going around handing out favors or handing out any promises. I'm basically saying, look what I've done in the past. My biggest capital is not my money or what I have built, but it's my integrity. I've always stood to my word. Whenever I do something and say something, whenever I say something, I will do it. So I never owed anybody anything. I never left any project half ready. And so this is what I'm offering. I'm offering an alternative. and that's the way I'm doing it. Also, I wanted to say that is I'm actually engaging with every federation, every delegate, every president individually, either personally, ideally, or by similar, like a video call, like we're doing right now. And so this is, of course, very strenuous and very, tiring and very time-consuming. But it's also very rewarding. First of all, I learn a lot. With my little booklet, lifelong learning is something that I really appreciate. So being forced to engage with 203 nations of this world, where I thought I was traveling the world and saw a lot of nations. As you know, I've never been to India. I've been to like 75 nations and countries in my life. Still, that's only a little over a third of all the FIDE federations. So it means that I'm learning every day about countries, about their needs. Of course, I only spent like 30 to 40 or 1 hour, 1.5 hours sometimes with a delegate or a country or president, chess president. But on the side, I learn a lot about the country, about the specific situation of the political environment, of the geographical environment, of the specific chess needs and the needs of the specific federation. And that's very rewarding, totally independent of whether I win this or not. I'm just, very much grateful that I'm able to talk to a lot of these great people, and especially using different outlets or events. So, for example, last week we just came back from Addis Ababa, where the African chess federations have met to select their new leader, Bernard. I only know them by first name. Bernard from Kenya is now the new president of the African Federation. And also I have joined Chess South Africa. That's my home. As you know, I'm living in South Africa. So my basically home base in terms of FIDE is South Africa. And Andrew Levax is my president. So he's also on the ticket of Bernard. So we're very happy that they made it. He's now there, and I've been using the opportunity of these 50 delegations, federations, and delegates and presidents to be in Addis Ababa to do personal meetings, of which I had like at least 12 to 15 every day, in-person meetings. And 1 week earlier, we were in Bucharest, where the same thing happened for Europe. And our dear friend Zurab has been re-elected as president of continental Europe. I've also used the opportunity to speak to nearly all of the 50 federations of Germany, not Germany, of Europe. So that's basically where I'm right now.
Brilliant. Right now, in FIDE, the elections is very exciting because there are 3 candidates who are standing. It's you, Vadim Rosenstein, and Timur Turlov. What are your thoughts about the other 2 candidates, and what do you feel about it?
Okay, well, first of all, as I said, my focus is on bringing over my story. So when I do these conversations with individual federations and delegations and so on, I don't speak about the others, only if I'm asked. So I'm going to answer your question as well. But just wanted to state that I'm not going around talking about other people or whatever. I want to bring over my story, my motivation, my background, my qualification, my plans individually. I want to be in a position that when there's the election in less than 2 months in Samarkand, I want to be able to know basically most of the people that I will address there. We are gonna make a final whatever address or speech or whatever. So when I'm speaking to the whole crowd, I want to be sure that I know like 85% of them personally. Maybe ideally 100% is always my goal, but it's never happening because there are always some people who don't want to speak to you, or they're so fixed in their ideas of like wanting to sponsor somebody else or wanting to elect somebody else, so that they are not even open to hearing you out. But in my experience, it has only been a handful so far, and I've spoken to 100 federations so far. So I'm halfway through. And so I would like to do that. But, in terms of who they are, obviously it was Arkady in the first place. And I must say that I'm really good friends with Arkady. Became over the years. We had our disputes and our differences, but we came over then and we joined forces in February in Weissenhaus with the FIDE Freestyle World Championship. And as you know, this was far away from any ideas that I would run as a presidential candidate. And so we have been very close. And actually, when I just talked about my trip from Hong Kong to Frankfurt, at the airport in Hong Kong, I actually met with Arkady like for another time because it was already out that I'm considering running for president. And so we sat together. And so I said, I really value, his contribution and so on. And so when I'm president, I want to make sure that he gets some kind of an honorary position. Has to be, of course, in line with the sanctions. But I don't want to be a person that changes everything or changes chess. I want to grow it, and I want to basically continue on the legacy that Arkady has done. I think he has done a good job in terms of what he was able to do. I mean, there are certain limitations, especially when you are like in this political era. Also, what I told to him, also, I think there was a 2-term limit, and I think should have been honored, and it's something that Malcolm and I were going to reinstate, so that it's always what do you say, how do you say, an incentive, like to say for an incumbent is, I can extend, I can do more and more. So in order to avoid that, I think the 2-term limit, and I think that should have been honored. This is one reason why I was starting to run also against him. And the second thing is that the chess has been dominated basically by one nation for 30, 40, 45, maybe some would say years. And it's always bad if something is run by one group of people for so long. I would say the same if it was run by South African people or German people or whatever. It's okay, let's have fresh ideas, fresh people, fresh things going on. So that's the reason I talked to him. I said, still I want to honor the legacy. And the third thing is basically, and that basically is true for both other candidates, is that in this political environment and in this, Malcolm and I, we are the only team who have not even the slightest allegation or whatever of Russian connections. This is obviously very important. I'm not against Russia, not at all. As I said, I value the Russian people. I like Arkady and so on. But I would like FIDE to stay out of any kind of political engagement in whichever area it is. I think it's a chess organization and should remain a chess organization focused on the chess. Of course, obliging with all of the court orders and everything, but none of our team is in any way hit by FIDE sanctions or Ukrainian sanctions or European sanctions or whatever. And so that doesn't hold true for the other candidates. So now the other candidates, obviously, Timur Turlov is now the replacement of Arkady. And I just took the opportunity in Addis Ababa, where he was also, and we had a breakfast together, like 1 hour breakfast, where I basically wanted to ask him what his motivation is. And he told me that, and I told him what my motivation is. And I asked him, like, he's a young man. I mean, he's only 38, so it's like there's something where I'm saying, it's like, I think in such a position that you do with the FIDE, you need all your life experience to be able to leverage there. And so aside from that, I said, what is your motivation? Obviously, you're running a big company, and so on. Do you really have time for this kind of job, which is should be a job for like non-profit and just you should have time for that. I'm kind of semi-retired, as you know me. I'm always working on stuff, but whatever company I have built, I always hand it over to the people who are managing it, and I do some investors work, but not an operational work. But anyway, he has his reasons and he has his things. So I would say that he's a formidable candidate, and if people, also in my talks to people. So if you are basically happy the way it is and you don't want any change and you want, somebody to take over exactly how Akari does it with the additional problems that, I just heard that Turlov has been sanctioned by Ukraine already, that he might be in the 22nd sanction package of Europe. And so there's always this threat hanging over this candidacy of like something might happen politically. And you might think of it as valid as it might be, or as justified as it may be. I don't want to make any opinion on that, but the reason is that there's something that is then more beneficial to our ticket than to their ticket, is that we are not under this threat. The other candidate, I must say that I know Vadim Rosenstein for now 2.5 years, and I don't want to say too many things, but I just can't take him seriously, honestly. First of all, he's a very young man. He has no experience. He has no real business. He certainly portrays somebody that he wants to be, but the facts show that come out more and more. I mean, you see all of these articles and everything, that there's a lot more going on. There might be other people, that he might be a puppet of somebody else. He might have much more Russian ties and business than he wants to admit. Certainly, his German business is not mentionable. It's a micro business, and he doesn't do any big business in Germany. So I don't want to badmouth, but I'm saying like if I don't think that this is a serious candidate. I would advise strongly anybody if they even not vote for me to not take this person as a president, because first of all, you have a totally inexperienced person who has not shown any kind of real business success in his life or whatever life experience. And second, you don't know who you are really voting for, because there might be people behind it that you don't know yet.
Okay. And thank you for sharing your thoughts on the other two candidates. I want to spend a bit of time on your vision. You have written about the 3 priorities for the next 4 years: growing the chess economy, federation support, and structural modernization. And for that, you've come through a 10-point plan. If we could talk a couple of minutes on each of that point, it could be very interesting. So the
Perfect.
first one is the member federations receive 20% of all FIDE revenue. This is something very unique. It has not been done before, I think.
Yes, exactly. I think that's also our main point. It's basically the result of what our team, Malcolm and I, would like to focus on, to not finding more ways of how to divide a very small pot differently to other people, not being dependent on a single rich person who gives his personal some part of his personal wealth into chess for whatever reason he might want to accomplish with it, but put chess in a global chess into a position where it is self-funded and can continue long after I am not longer engaged in chess by its own. It's not really dependent on who is running it. Who is running it should rather define of how much the revenue is and so on, where it comes from. But it should be transparent. And so this is why I'm saying, okay, whatever we generate on additional value, it should be 20% to the shareholders. And the shareholders in this case are the 203 federations. That puts them in a position where they are they have a planning horizon. We calculated that around, they can calculate with 15 to 30,000 euros a year, which a budget they can use, which for some federation might not mean a thing, and maybe we have a different key where we do some more allocations for federations that need more and federations that have more, similar like a Germany also is run. For example, you have the 16 states, and there are rich states like Bavaria and poor states. And so there's an intra-state like fund. Some people, some states get more, some less. So we have to find a key. That is something where we have to have an expert commission, whatever, to look at what a fair key would be. But in the end, on average, it's like a 30 to it's 15 to 30,000 euro, and the significant to some federations to basically say, okay, now I can have a revenue that I can calculate with, or based on that, they can go to their governments, because the governments also give help and support, sometimes even in matching the support, sometimes even exceeding it. But what they need to show, and this is also one part of my outcome of my direct talks to every individual. As I said, I'm really doing the detail work. I know everything detail about the Solomon Islands, about just as one example, I just had this call. I know there are 9 islands and they have 800,000 people, and Simon has to support like 9 islands and all of but he doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't have enough chessboards and all this kind of stuff. He's kind of selling sausages on the weekends to make his team go to the Olympiad and so on. So all these kinds of things are important, and so in order for them to have a solid plan for the future, so that they are not basically in the hands of somebody who wants their vote for something and say, okay, I give you now this, and then in 4 years I'm coming back, or making false promises. I'll basically say, okay, this is something I'm setting up in terms of getting the top line revenue by using our most valuable assets in chess. These are our top players. They are the attraction for the sponsors, for the worldwide community interest. And we're going to use it similarly to what we started with freestyle chess, to make them like brand ambassadors and chess ambassadors, and thereby creating their own brands and their own values. But of course, having FIDE participate in it, and then whatever FIDE generates out of the big tournaments and the big attention that we are doing in the world, giving to the federations. This is the 20% promise.
So for now, this 20% is, as you said, for bigger federations, there can be plan of bigger amount, but right now it's equal for all 200 federations. The 20% is...
No, what I mean, as I said, we have not thought about any key. It might be that bigger corporations might even get less because they don't need so much, and that based on the needs of the federation, we're going to allocate something. But as I said, we have not even started to look at the key of how to do that. Because first we have to create the pie before you can't you can't divide a pie that you don't have. So first of all, we have to take office, see the real situation, how it is, the real challenges, and then see how we can leverage the contacts that I have, and the possibilities that I have presenting chess on a world stage on eye level with state leaders, with company leaders, and so on, to generate more revenue. And then it's more not up to me, but more to the chess knowledgeable people like Malcolm and other team members. And also I'd really like to engage all the continents. I was just in Africa, and as I said, I feel more like the African candidate than the European candidate. And I really want Africa to play a much more bigger role in the future, based on their population, based on their activities, seeing more rated players there, more grandmasters, more tournaments, all this kind of stuff happening there. And so some of these nations might need more support than other nations. And I learned also within Africa, there are richer countries and more developing countries in chess. So this has to be looked at by the African chess people like Bernard or Andre, or the people who are running the African continent, looking how do we come up with a key there? How do we come up with a key in Europe? How do we come up with a key in Asia and in the Americas? And then bringing this all together by Malcolm and saying, okay, this is a distribution key, but on average, it's going to be like, just to give a number so that anybody knows what does it mean, 20%, we're looking at 15 to 30,000 starting with that.
Right. Going to the second point, it is to bring 50 million USD of new commercial revenue into chess. I think we touched upon that a bit. As you said, you raised significant amount for freestyle chess. So this is something on your mind. But this number of 50 million, how did you arrive at?
Yes. First of all, I wanted to make sure when I make promises and when I make statements, I want them to be as tangible as possible, because everybody can say, I want more transparency, I want more money, more whatever. So I say a specific number. That number basically comes from doubling, at least doubling of what I have put in for freestyle in the overall chess market. So I don't put a time frame on it, because of course I can't start in day one, like pouring in all the revenue. I have to start, first of all, looking at the situation where we are, and then going to, being able to be in front of sponsors. As if I go there now and said, yeah, I'm going to run, are you committing? Nobody would commit. They only take you seriously when you have a position. So once I'm elected, I can immediately on day one start going to all my top level contacts and say, okay, now I'm representing chess worldwide, and so what can we do to foster that? And also bringing sponsors to individual countries, because I have so many contracts with corporate sponsors and so on. There are so many individual different goals of these companies. Some company might want to specifically target the Mali market, so to speak, something, whatever you want. And so, here we have something, maybe we can do a tournament in Mali, and then so that's kind of a brokering of this is also one thing that I would like to do when we are talking to big sponsors, where the small country representatives do not have access to this, and they usually send ideas into a system that often doesn't even reply, which what does. That is why I'm very hands-on. I give my WhatsApp number to everybody, and I will continue to do that, being accessible also as a president for every federation. If something is not going the right way or somebody doesn't respond immediately, I'm going to be on it and have people respond and have given an answer. So that's my hands-on approach. I don't work with assistants. I don't work, as you know me, for years now. I'm my own man. And I don't hide behind other people. I do my own work. I get up very early in the morning. I do my work, and I'm very happy to execute on everything on my own, with the help of the team, obviously, and then delegating as well.
Mm. And then you mentioned about creation of a global digital federation service platform. That's a ambitious project.
Yeah, so it's basically, also we saw it, for example, in Europe, right? In Europe, it's of course should be further ahead, or is basically further ahead than African or other federations. But still, there was a big complaint about, how amateur-wise it was not really digital, the whole process and so on. And so there are so many things that you can do today. So, for example, I'm going to travel to Estonia at the end of the month. Estonia is the most digitized country in the world. The government, everything you can do, if you research it, you can do everything online there, elections, everything from home. So, I think we have great resources within the chess community. So if we basically, I don't know how it's going to go. I'm going to meet with them. But, to basically say, okay, we as FIDE want to learn from you, Estonia, how you digitize your basically the whole country. So can you help us with, the service platform that FIDE has, a digital service platform that is easy to reach from everybody, because many of these federations are, on islands, thousands of kilometers away from the next mainland. They're just basically creating their own environment there. If I talk, for example, Bermudas, I think they're 1,000 kilometers away from the next land. We talk about other, but also even within Africa, it's very difficult to reach. Certainly, you can't say, okay, let's have a tournament next weekend there. How do you get there? You get there from East Africa to West Africa. You have to take 3 flights or whatever.
Yes. So, Jan, we were talking about creating a global digital federation service platform. Very ambitious idea.
Yes.
Could you throw some light on that? Yeah.
Well, first of all, everything that I do is ambitious, right? So that's I like ambitious stuff, easy, everyone can do, I always do the hard stuff, which is starting with this election, and then also implementing that. And, on one hand, it's an ambitious idea. On the other hand, it's basically, a necessity. And it's something that, is not rocket science. It's not like we are going to Mars or whatever. You were basically trying to get a digital service platform that is accessible for all 203 federations. And that's going to sit on one server, and it's going to be accessible, of course, through the internet. And so that has been done like several times. We just have to learn from the best. Where I said the first place I would go and try to learn from them would be Estonia, because they are the most digitized nation. And based on that and on the requirements that we're doing, also putting in the distant learning necessities, we are going to look at implementation schedules. It might take like half a year or whatever until we establish that. So it's nothing that we can switch on the first day. We have to develop it. We have to get the budget to develop it, and we have to develop it and then put it for service for the members.
Mm-hmm. And then moving on to the next point, add 10 million children to school chess programs. This is one. And the next 2-3 points, like increase female participation by 50% and train 10,000 coaches and arbiters. Do you have a plan of how this works out?
Yes. So these are basically, this is now considering concerning the specific chess market. I would say like we have this relationship sharing between Malcolm and I. Maybe it's a good idea to have a separate interview with Malcolm, because I consider myself, and once we run it, like more the foreign minister, the figurehead, the person who talks to the outside world of chess, to make chess, representing it on the world stage in front of, nation leaders, heads of states or ministers, company heads, and sponsors and so on, getting in the revenue and getting the word out that chess is now cool and worldwide interesting for sponsors. And Malcolm is, of course, the chess. My chess experience is limited to what you have seen, like with freestyle, and I wouldn't want to change this into a freestyle organization. Some people might accuse me of that, but as I said, this whole freestyle thing is something that was inspired by Magnus Carlsen, and I have not even known what Fischer Random was before. So I'm really looking at the whole overall chess, also preserving tradition and everything. And this is where Malcolm comes in. So these numbers basically are numbers that came from Malcolm that basically said, okay, that should be our goals of achieving that. So how he arrives at these numbers, but this, because I wanted to have specific numbers. I didn't want to say more players or more arbiters or more women. I want to say a specific target. Those are the numbers, and maybe in your interview with him, you can talk about these in details.
And I guess in that sense, perhaps the points supporting 100 new international tournaments, creating professional pathways for 1,000 talents would also fall under his purview, Malcolm Payne's.
Exactly. Perfect.
Right. And the last 2 points, which is publish quarterly transparency reports and deliver measurable progress reports every year. This is something that is, I think you would like to do this.
Yes, it's basically a specific points that I wanted to mention concerning the transparency and accountability. Because when I have had an organization, which I always have done in the past, I'm very transparent and very, I don't hold back any information. I don't keep any secrecy. So transparency is one thing, and accountability is one other. So I want to be held accountable to what I'm saying, and we want to do that in publishing and integrating with everybody. So those are basically specifics for these 2 points, but there's maybe more in detail in the future, but I wanted to have it as brief as possible within these 10 points.
Amazing. Well, Jan, thank you for, shedding light on your entire FIDE presidential election campaign. And I think it's going to be very exciting next 2 months for the world of chess.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, it's very for me, and I hope for everyone. And especially, again, thanks for your attention. Thanks for the Indian market. Thanks for the Indian participation. And we're going to see how this all ends up. And I'm sure you're going to also be in Samarkand in September. So we're going to see each other personally. We're going to have some more stuff to talk about, whatever happens in between now and then.
Sure. Thank you, Jan, for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Saga. Okay, bye-bye. Bye.